What's up, NHL fans? It is Tuesday, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Matt Rempe making headlines once again in the NHL, but alongside Colby Cohen, I'm Jonny Lazarus. This is Morning Cuppa Hockey, presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet, bet on Betway, but please play responsibly in Ontario only, and you must be 19 years of age or older. We got a loaded show today with 14-year NHL veteran John-Michael Liles, current studio analyst for the Colorado Avalanche. He's joining us live from his wine cellar out in Colorado. So he's up and at it pretty early. We're going to have him join us any minute here. But Colby, what's going on with you? How's your morning going?
It's good, man. I'm excited to talk to Johnny. He's a studio analyst, but he does not work in the studio. We're getting Johnny today is where he broadcasts Avalanche intermissions pre and post from. So it's probably a little too early for him to crack open a bottle of wine, but let's bring him into the show and let's see how our guy's doing from the wine cave. What's up, Johnny?
Not much. I gotta be honest. I wish we would have done this before daylight savings time because the last couple of mornings been a little rough.
So how much pull do you have to convince Colorado to let you do a show from your wine cellar? I don't know how that works.
Well, you know what? I was going up and down the mountain. We live up in the mountains, and going up and down the mountain quite a bit when I first retired in 2017. And when COVID hit, they could only have two guys in studio. So we had Kyle Keefe and Mark Rycroft, and I'm sure you guys know both of those guys. They're unbelievable. They're so good at what they do. They're hilarious. And so they said, hey, we can only have two guys in studio. Do you want to broadcast from home? I'm like, all right, sure. Yeah. It saves me the hour-and-a-half trip each way. And I was like, can I drink? They're like, yeah, why not? I mean, all bets are off at this point. So nobody knew what was going to happen. And so I was like, I'll just try and set something up. So originally I was doing it from my desk, and then I kicked it into like a closet, but I kind of set it up with a few things. And I was like, I'm just going to see if the wine room has good enough internet. And lo and behold, it did. And now people I'll go down and do games at Ball Arena, and people will be like, why are you down here? Like, why are you not in the wine cave? And I'm like, well, sometimes I'd like to be at the games, but yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't know if it's pull. I don't know if it's, just kind of one of those things that happened. And now it's like they almost can't turn back on it at this point. But the studio's unbelievable. All the folks that work on the shows that allow me to do this and still be a part of it, from up here in the mountains. It's really cool. And it's kind of become its own thing. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It definitely has caught me off guard the last couple of weeks. I feel like I saw you and Hedgie doing a show from the casino, and then you and maybe Jan Stasny or something. And I'm like, where is he right now? It throws me off.
They did a wine cave on the road, and so I got Hayduk to come up, and it was in Blackhawk, which is kind of the gambling area outside of Denver, up in the mountains. And Monarch Casino did a wine cave from the road. So I got Hayduk, and then I got Darren Helm. And Hayduk was pretty easy, but Helmer, I had to pull some strings for him. He wasn't super eager to jump on camera, but I thought he was great. It took him a minute to just loosen up a little bit, and then now it was great because a guy like that, he's pretty soft spoken, but just the things that he talks about, even in that brief 30-second interaction, it's really cool for a guy that played a long time, had a lot of success, 2 Stanley Cups. It was fun.
Well, it's also with Hayduk, he never stops smiling. I mean, he's just the happiest guy in the world. Guy. I mean, that obviously hasn't changed. And then I see, for me, I'll be broadcasting a game, and his kids are now on the ice,
which is crazy. When we were playing together, I used to call them the Hellions because they were 3-year-old, 4-year-old twins, and they would just skate around and two-hand everybody in the family skates, and now they're playing college hockey at heart. I can't even wrap my mind around this at this point.
It's honestly the same with Footy's kids. I went over to Footy's house a couple of times when Matt Duchene was living there. We went and hung out at the pool over there in the early training camp days, and those little kids are running around like wild banshees. And then one day I'm between the benches in Chicago, and I don't remember if it was Cal or Nolan, one of them standing there, and I pulled them, and I was like, you probably don't remember this. I'm like, but it's funny to see you out here. It's just crazy to see these guys with kids that of that age playing right now.
Well, and footy's kids are like 6'4" and 6'5" too. So it just it like rubs it in even more that not only are they grown now, but they're like way taller than me. And yeah, it's crazy how things come full circle in that regard. And but it's super fun. Like even talking to Hayduk about how much he enjoys going to Boston and watching watching the boys play kind of all over the East Coast. And just following them. I mean, Merrick played at the U.S. program, and so it's super cool just to see how much success these guys have had coming out of Colorado.
Johnny, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but our listeners now have gotten to know Colby for a little over 2 months. And
they all hate me.
Yeah,
they all hate me.
Some might like him. Others
they come on our show just to hate message the chat on YouTube.
But I wanted to ask you, since you've known Colby, since he was a young NHL rookie, I guess, do you have any young Colby Cohen stories that
let's not do this.
Maybe you can share?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I just go back. Was it game one? I think it might have been game one. Was it against Calgary? Was your first game?
Second
game. Okay, second game. And one of the coaching staff said, "Hey, like just when you're out there, just think like you're like Rob Blake. Just play like Rob Blake." And so we're playing Calgary, and he goes after Jerome McGinley at the end of the first, and everybody's like, "What are you doing? Leave him alone. Let him sleep.
Let him sleep.
Like, if you let him sleep, he's going to have 2 assists, and he's going to be pretty quiet. If you go after him, get him pissed off, he's going to have a hat trick, a fight, and probably 2 assists." It was one of those things. But Colby was like, "Nope, going after the toughest guy out here." And I mean, thankfully, I don't think you guys dropped the gloves, but you were shoving him after the end of the first, and I think he was staring at you, and I'm like, "Colby, what are you doing, man?" Yeah,
I have a great picture where he absolutely drops me, and you can only see like the back of my jersey from like the net cam, because obviously like I was down in the offensive zone, lost per usual. I'll never forget. Johnny comes up to me and he's like, "Colby, you don't stick your fingers in the bear cage at the zoo. Don't do that. You just don't do that." And they were right. Ginla went off that night. We ended up losing that game, and saved me some money because I had to put a heavy amount. They made me go pretty deep with the money on the board in those games. So
was it in Calgary or were you home?
No, it was at home in Colorado.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think that's better though. If you were trying to get after Ginla on the road, that'd be a whole different story,
Yeah.
Dude, I had so much. I've never had more adrenaline in my life than those first couple of games. Like you can go through a brick wall, and that's not my personality at all. But I was like, I don't give a shit. I'll do anything to stay. Mm-hmm. I don't care who it is. So I would have taken a beating. It wouldn't have mattered. We had Chris Stewart on our team.
Yeah,
pretty fucking tough.
He was really
pretty tough.
Cody McLeod. Yeah, we had some.
That's right. David Kochi. Remember?
Yeah,
David
we had some meat. Oh man, Colby loves to be hated though. That's his thing. So if they're hating on him in the chat, like he's that's his sweet spot.
You know what's funny, Johnny? So when we first started our show, I originally like messaged Colby on LinkedIn like 4 or 5 years ago to like reach out to him for advice when I was in college, like to get into media. And I posted the screenshot of like my message and him being like, "Dude, happy to help. Call me anytime." I thought it was like a nice story. Like I reached out 4 years ago. Now we're doing a show together. He texted me like 2 hours later. He's like, "Dude, like you're making me seem to be such this nice guy. Like you're ruining it for me. Like, what the fuck are you doing?" Yeah, what the fuck are you doing? You can't do this. You're ruining my cred. And I was like, I thought it'd be nice to like show that we had whatever. You know what I mean?
He pulled the Jew card and he was like, come on, we're both Jews. Help me out a little here. So I was like, all right, I'll help you. All
right, but I do want to go into some like current topics. Last night, Matt Rempe's elbow. We were kind of talking about it before we went live. I'm a Rangers fan, cover the team. I still don't know how some people look at that hit and say it wasn't dirty. What do you make of the hit? What did you think originally? And I guess, do you think it warrants a suspension?
It was funny. I wasn't watching the game. I was watching the Boston game with St. Louis with Torrey going back to Boston again. But I kept on Twitter, I kept looking up Rempe McDermott to see if they fought. And so, they had some fireworks early. So I'm sure Rempe had some adrenaline going from that because McDermott is, probably top 2 or 3 in the league, toughness wise. And so, I mean, he's trying to make an impact. He's playing 5 minutes a game. Like, it's hard to play 5 minutes a game. And so when you're out there, it's like you got to fight, you got to hit, maybe you score, but it's you ask some of those guys, like fourth line guys that play 5 minutes, like it's hard. You're sitting for extended periods of time. And so, he's got adrenaline going from chirping with McDermott, and McDermott asked him to fight early, it looked like. And I mean, he's finishing his check. I don't think he's trying to fire an elbow into his jaw, but I mean, he definitely got him. And regardless of if it barely got him, when you're not expecting an elbow to the jaw like that, I mean, who knows how long he's out, but yeah, like that's
That's
and people are saying
it's still
like
an elbow. It doesn't matter how hard it is or if he barely hits. I mean, a high stick to the face that barely hits him is still a high stick, right? So, I mean, listen, he's trying to make an impact. I know McDermott wasn't super happy with him waving at the Devils bench on the way off the ice, but I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's great to see some hatred between the Devils and the Rangers. Like, I think that's great. I think it's a suspendable hit, Laz. But I will say this: like, I don't think that he is. I saw someone say that's intent to injure. Like, I agree with Jonny Lazarus here that, like, you don't get a lot of ice time. Your adrenaline's going. You're trying to make a play and leave your mark on the game. It happens so fast. It's easy to slow a play down and look at it in slow-mo, and it looks like he extends and he reaches. Look, it's a bad hit. It was head contact only. He's probably getting suspended for at least 1 or 2 games. I didn't love the fact that he wouldn't fight McDermott. Like, that's kind of what you're there for when you play 5 minutes a game. Like, you have another heavy on the other team, like, do it. But I don't think, like, the Ranger fans who are saying that it wasn't a bad hit are insane. And the Devil fans that are making it out to be mass murder are also kind of insane.
Yeah.
Like,
no one's elbowing anyone in the head on purpose in today's NHL. Like, everyone they know the rules, they know the consequences. Like, I also think it's Rempe still trying to figure out how to control his body. Like, the guy is massive.
6'7", right?
Yeah.
Like it's I mean, he's arms and legs and he's kind of all over the place. I don't know if it's a suspendable hit, to be honest with you.
Really?
At this point, well, I'm just saying I don't know what a suspendable hit is anymore.
That's fair.
So, right? And so I like, maybe he gets suspended, maybe he doesn't. I don't have an opinion either way, just because the way they look at things, Department of Player Safety. I mean, they have their own kind of criteria. I don't even try to dig in on it anymore. It's like, okay, that's the decision they made. So.
Wasn't that the issue though? Like, I was saying last night, like, they give Gallagher 5 games earlier this year for his elbow. If you want to have any sort of consistency, like, that's what it should be.
But he's also a major repeat offender, Laz.
Rempe's had 9 games. He doesn't have a chance to be a repeat offender yet.
Okay, yet.
So you set the tone early for him, And this is coming from a Rempe lover.
I mean, I don't know if Department of Player Safety sets the tone like ever on that, right?
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
They're supposed to be as impartial as you can be. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I like, maybe he gets 1, maybe he gets 0. I could see it going either way. I don't know that I can sit there and be like, this has to be suspendable. Yeah. Right.
Okay. So let me ask you another question. And I know you were watching the Boston game last night, but there'll be more of a theme to it. Jonny Lazarus here is like, I'm noticing defensemen not doing a great job these days of protecting themselves. And like, I see Luke Hughes taking a lot of big hits. I see Lindgren taking massive hits all the time. And I'm curious, like, you had the puck on your stick a ton, right? You used to get up and down the ice. Like, you were a thoroughbred the way that you played. Do you think that, like, there's this sort of lack of awareness in today's game with some of these young offensive defensemen that, like, kind of put themselves in harm's way a little bit without thinking, like, I need to protect myself a little bit? I don't know. Like, are you seeing a trend like that, or are you going to stick up for those guys because you were such a stud at carrying the puck?
Well, listen, let's be honest. I got clocked a number of times my first few years, and even in my last few years. The game's gotten so fast, it continues to get fast. And let's be honest, the rink hasn't gotten any bigger. It's the same thing with football. It's the same, like these fields, these rinks, whatever, like they aren't growing, and athletes are only getting bigger, faster, stronger. So the hits are still going to be there, I think. I almost wonder sometimes, is it coaching? Where I watch Cale Makar, and yeah, like he's on a different level, let's be honest, right? But very rarely does he get caught in a bad situation. And I don't know if that's if that's the coaching for the Avs, and they're like, listen, you don't get hit. It doesn't matter if you turn the puck over. It doesn't matter if you don't get the red line. We'll take the icing. We'll take you not getting hurt versus you getting hurt trying to put yourself in a tougher situation. I don't like, to me, that, like, if I'm on the Devils coaching staff and I've got Luke Hughes back there, like, you take that icing, right? And I don't know if it's just maybe you learn more and more, and by his third and fourth year, because Cale Makar, being fourth, fifth year, it's like, yeah, maybe he's learned that, hey, I'm not going to put myself in these vulnerable positions. But yeah, it does seem like one, guys are fast and they're strong, and when they connect hard, even for Luke Hughes, who's a big boy. And two, I kind of wonder, it's like, is it something where certain coaching staffs are okay with these, not generational players, but Makar's a generational player, but when you look at like these top tier offensive defensemen, are they okay with those times where you're like, you know what, just get it off the glass, or don't put yourself, like, let the guy take the puck first if you have to. And to me, when you have guys like that, I mean, maybe it is something that you say, like, just don't put yourself in a bad position. But Luke Hughes has gotten hit quite a bit this year, some big hits. He took a couple in Colorado when the Devils were here, and
he got smoked in Colorado.
He got
right?
crushed.
That was that big one.
Yes.
Yeah.
He got crushed, and same thing. It was like almost like he wasn't expecting it. So not only is it, I think, coaching for, like, don't put yourself in a bad position, but like, hey, you gotta make sure that this is what guy they're gunning for you, right? It, like, does Quinn Hughes ever really get hit very much? No, like he doesn't put himself in bad positions either. So it is, I kind of wonder if it comes down to a lot of it, not a lot of it, but part of it is coaching and how they're watching film, telling them to protect themselves, telling them to not put themselves in those bad situations.
I don't know, because I feel like, you see Adam Fox as well, right? You put him in that category, a guy who doesn't really get hit, but his D partner, Ryan Lindgren, gets lit up every night. So, like, I don't know.
He's not offensive either.
No, he's not off. I mean,
he takes more big hits than anybody.
Anybody too, right? Yeah, like that's situational awareness. Like Adam Fox knows where all everybody else on the ice is. He knows where the hot dog vendor is. Like he's got that cerebral awareness, and you can see it. That's the way he plays the game, right? He's not overly fast by any means, but he knows everybody, and like, Colby, like when you're on the ice with a guy like Rempe, when he's on the ice, right? You have to.
Sure.
If you don't,
for sure,
that's when you take those big hits. And so maybe that's part of it, is you got to know when those guys that are going to put you into the third row are on the ice. And if you don't, then you end up taking bigger hits.
It's almost more worrisome when, like, Tom Wilson's out there, because he plays 18 minutes. Like, you're gonna be on the ice against him a lot. With Rempe, like, you might, Adam Fox might only see Rempe out on the ice one time all game.
Yeah, they're on the same team.
Yeah.
I'm making what I'm saying, though. Like, any offensive Hughes, but whatever. But so just curiously, like, going into the Avs a little more, you kind of mentioned the hits that Hughes said, just to pivot a little bit. You see this team every night. First off, I think the Avs broadcast has more fun than any other broadcast in the NHL. You guys, lock, stock, and barrel. The video of Woj drinking the spitter, or Riker drinking
the spitter, that turns my stomach every time I watch it. And honestly, I don't know how Riker didn't grab him and choke him out right there. Like, takes the swallow, then holds it, spits it back out, and doesn't even break stride. It's amazing. And so many people have talked about that. It's been all over social media. It's so disgusting. But it's gross. I mean, it's like the embodiment of our broadcast of, like, haha, we got you, right? Like, that's we always say, if you don't have fun, like if we aren't having fun, nobody's gonna have fun watching us. And that's literally how we do it. Oh God, you had to do it.
He
It's
has the video.
7:20 here right now.
We're showing the video of their color man Mark Riker drink their play-by-play guy Moja's spitter cup during a broadcast. I mean, this like went viral. It was on Awful Announcing. But here's what I will say to people who are listening and watching this show: if you have ESPN Plus and you want to be entertained, watch an Avs broadcast. Like, these guys are hysterical during the game. Like, they are so entertaining. They do not take it serious when they, like, obviously there are times in the game where they buckle down, but like, you will be entertained, right? These guys are entertaining. And then the team on the ice, they're pretty entertaining as well. And this is kind of what I want to ask you about, Johnny. You look at the moves that they made. I love the Trennan move. Duhaime, Walker bolsters that sort of defense a little bit. I love all those moves. The question that I have for you the most of what they did at the trade deadline is middle stat for Byram.
Yeah.
That was the one that caught me the most off guard, and I think everybody, maybe not you because you're there. What do you make of that trade? And like, were you surprised to see them move off of Byram? I know that they have a lot of good guys, but like, that kid's a stud. I mean, he
is a stud. He is a stud. And I've said this since they won the Cup against Tampa Bay. Bo Byram was arguably the best player for the Avs in that series against Tampa Bay. He was 19 or 20 years old at the time, and he was flying, played unbelievable. They put him in every situation. I'm not going to say he's regressed since then. I think it's just he's kind of had a tough time like finding where he belongs in that decor. And so you had Sam Girard, who was out for quite a bit. Cale Makar eats up the lion's share of the power play minutes. So Bo Byram doesn't see power play time really. They were seeing the second power play unit is seeing 20, 15 seconds at the end of every power play. And that's really hard, especially when you're an offensive guy to you're just not getting the feel of the puck. And when you're an offensive guy and you don't have that feel of the puck, and like, it's just hard to really generate. And I'm not going to say cookies or points or anything like that, but just that confidence, because he's a two-way defenseman. And I would say he leans offensively. And when Cale Makar is in front of you, Devon Toews is in front of you. And so when Makar is out, Toews took over the top spot on the power play. And so for Bo Byram, it was almost like he had this ceiling because he wasn't going to break through those two guys. And you could almost see it weighing on him a little bit. And he was playing third pairing minutes, which, nothing against him. It was just their defense. When you have Makar and Toews who play 25 plus every night, and then you have Girard came back and Manson. And so Bo was kind of slotting in. Bo was with Manson quite a bit. But to me, you have to give to get. And for the Avs, you had to give up Byram, young defenseman, a lot of potential, to get a second line center. They've missed a second line center since Nazem Kadri left. They haven't had one. That's been the big one for the Avs, is when they had that second line center, they were dominant, because you throw MacKinnon out, and Jared Bednar is not afraid to go strength on strength. If it's the other team's top line and they're at home and they have last change, he'll throw MacKinnon out, because he knows that the MacKinnon line is arguably going to dominate most shifts. And so in order to kind of offset that strength on strength, you need that second line that's really good. And they have the wingers. When you look at Nichushkin and whoever you slot in there, if you slot in Parise, if you slot in Drouin, if you slot in Lehkonen on that second line with Nichushkin. Nichushkin was having the best season of his career before he left the team for a bit. Now he's back, scored the OT winner in game one back. And I just think they needed that second line center. And so, it comes down to, what do you give up? And they were comfortable giving up Byram, because I think they knew that they had that Johansson trade for Walker, where Walker is, I think he's a good two-way defenseman, maybe doesn't trend as much offensively as Byram, just in my mind.
Right.
And their back end is probably the best blue line in the NHL.
It's up there, right?
Them in Vegas, probably.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely up there. Vegas with the Hannafin trade. I mean, I played with Noah in Carolina his rookie year. And good kid, skates, never gets tired. Like, just, he's a freak. And, that was a really, really good ad by Vegas, is what I would say.
Something I'm curious about with this team too. I went to UMass with Cale his freshman year for a semester, so I've known him a little bit since college. I saw him at All-Star Weekend, and I was kind of asking him just about the room. And when when Colorado was in New York, I got to talk to him and Devontae's a little bit in the locker room. And I've been telling everyone since, when you're around the Avalanche, and you hear the word culture, I don't know if there is any other team in the NHL that is on the same page as much as they are away from the rink. But you're a guy who, you're not shy to talk about drinking on the plane, having a beer, having a glass of wine when you were playing. I feel like this team doesn't do that. And you hear rumors about Nate being very strict with off-ice diets and stuff. Can you talk about what this group's camaraderie is like off the rink? I mean, you're around it more than anyone probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at it, it's a solid group, and I mean, I think that starts with Joe Sakic, and he knows what it's like to not only be on championship teams, but now he's built a championship team, right? And so it starts with Gabe Landeskog, although he's not playing. Gabe sets the tone. Whatever Nate can do whatever he wants, but Gabe's the dad. He's been the captain since he was 19 years old. He's the guy. Right. And so if Nate ever got out of line, Gabe could grab him and be like, hey, this is how it is. And now Nate has rolled with that. And Nate just wants to win. Mm-hmm. And it's impressive to see. I've played golf with him, and it's a $20 bet, and he wants to just jam it down your throat. Right. He wants to win, and he is so competitive. And now you see now that they've won, and he's felt the reward of all that commitment and that sacrifice. And I think that trickles down. And right, now guys say, okay, well, Nate does this. Why shouldn't I do this? And Bedsy says it, Colorado's the slowest team on the road getting out of the locker room. But it's because Nate and the guys have a recovery routine that they do, and they're not going to the staff is not going to argue that because they have that success. And so when I look at it, it's Gabe Landeskog, it's Nathan MacKinnon, but now you bring in a guy like Cale Makar, and Nathan MacKinnon's best friend is Tyson Barrie, and Cale Makar coming in, Tyson Barrie got moved. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why Nate knows. Tice, I love Tice, great guy, great player.
Agreed.
But Cale Makar coming in necessitated Tyson Barrie getting moved, and I don't think Nate was loved that at first, but then when you talk to him, Cale Makar on the back end and Nathan MacKinnon up front, I mean, there's not many teams that are ever going to compete with that. So
there isn't one.
He wants to win, and he understands what it takes to win, and that's to me that just it permeates throughout the entire team. That culture, that drive to win, and everybody buys in.
I'm pretty sure Nate even said on the ice after they won the cup in an interview, what's the difference with this year's group? How'd you get over the hump? He was go get a Cale Makar.
Cale Makar. Yeah, exactly. Get a Cale Makar. I mean, that and that year that Cale had, I mean, he's kind of dealt with some minor stuff that's been nagging, I think, this year. But I mean, the pace that he was on to start this year, even Nate's playing freakishly well. Every year you're oh, I can't believe he's playing this well. And this year, he's blown every other year out of the water. To me, he's the Hart Trophy favorite. Now, mind you, I don't know that he'll win it, but the way that he's played and just what the Avs of, no Landeskog, you lose Nichushkin for extended period of time. You basically don't really have a second line center when they Johansson came in, but then they moved him basically to the fourth line. So what Nate's doing is I think head and shoulders above anybody else.
Well, I'll just let everybody know, before Cale Makar broke all the Avalanche records, there was a guy by the name of John-Michael Liles who pretty much was at the top of the charts as a defenseman in all of those things. And I know you never like to admit this, but I've never played better hockey in my life. And honestly, the only reason I think that I was able to have such a good preseason and get the first couple opportunities in the NHL is because I got lucky and they put me with you, and you were easy to play with. It's just get him the puck and just make sure you just watch him do his thing and be open, and you'll be okay. So
I appreciate that. I don't know if it was that easy, but
it was honestly, I was oh, this isn't that hard.
So. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, so look, I don't want to keep you too long. The last thing I want to talk about, I mean, I think the Trennan and the Duhaime moves are also underrated. They don't need to improve their top top. They improve the shit out of their bottom. But, you know, from an improvement standpoint, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was Michigan State. You know, we can't not at least touch on the Sparties. Like, so good to have them back on the national stage in the top 5-10 all season. They've got big time goaltender. They've got a kid who's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. You know, they've got some new facilities. There's life in that program. And I think it's great for college hockey. How much have you gotten involved or, you know, what have you kind of done or been a part of? Because I just got to assume they've done a better job of like re-engaging their alumni base with the success that they're having.
Well, they definitely have. You know, first and foremost, I think our alumni are engaged. I'm on a big group chat with a ton of Michigan State hockey guys, and it's fun to be on that. Now that they're winning Big Ten champs, I think they're ranked 3rd in the country right now. Adam Nightingale has done an amazing job. I played with Adam. He was a transfer from Lake State when I was at Michigan State. So he practiced only my year with him. And then his younger brother, Jared, was on the team as well. And so Nighty is an unbelievable person, first and foremost, an unbelievable coach. And then he's got some really, really good assistant coaches, recruiters. Brad Fast, who was my D partner for 4 years, is one of their assistant coaches as well. And so not only do you have the new facilities, but you've got this buy-in, I think, from the alumni and from the school that this is the guy. And he, you know, I don't think a requirement when they were doing the coaching search was that he had to be a Michigan State guy, but the fact that Knights was just down the road in Ann Arbor coaching the U.S. program, he's coached at Shattuck, he's coached in the NHL with Detroit, he's coached the U.S. program. Like, his resume is extensive. And now you're seeing that buy-in from the recruits that, I want to play for this guy because he coaches to today's game, which is a big one. Players, you know, it used to be it was probably going to be 4 years. When I was in college, it was probably going to be 4 years, maybe 3. Now it's like, okay, if you're good and you're playing well, and like it's 1 or 2 usually. And so that's a part of it. You have to factor that in, and you can't just say we want 4-year guys, because that's not the reality of college hockey. And Adam Nightingale knows it, and his staff knows it. You have to be able to replenish that pipeline. And I think he's done a fantastic job. I mean, I try and watch their games every weekend if I can. I went down to Colorado Springs and watched them play Air Force early on in the year. And I mean, young team that, you know, Trey Augustine, the goaltender, true freshman goaltender. Not very often do you have true freshmen come in and play the way that he's played. Even Ryan Miller had a year at junior after high school and came in and played. You know, he was unbelievable. That's really like the last kind of goaltender at Michigan State that you compare him to. And you know, true freshmen don't always have success. It just doesn't, you know, it doesn't translate a lot of times. But he's stepped his game up huge, and he's been a big part of it. It's awesome to watch. I haven't been able to get back to Michigan State in the last few years to see the new facilities, but I'm hoping to next year. It's something that's on my list, and it's just so cool to see, because, you know, BC, like Michigan State, Minnesota, like all these teams, you always want them up there because I think it just helps college hockey.
100%.
It makes a difference, right? And so now that Michigan State has kind of made those steps, last year was a big stepping stone. And this year, like now it's like, okay, you're proving it, right? And now you've got these buy-ins from the recruits that are like, okay, we see where this is going. And we see the facilities now that are there to kind of match the coaching and the program. And that, I think you've got a great combination. But it all goes back to Adam Nightingale to me. To me, it's Adam Nightingale and what he brings and what his staff brings on a daily basis.
I was doing some research before interviewing you, and I was looking up your college stats and college highlights and whatnot. And the first thing that came up, I don't know if you can guess it, Mike Camilleri.
Oh, yeah. I
didn't want to bring it up, but
did he score on that? I hope he didn't. I think
he scored. It was nasty.
It was. I mean, you know, we had some great battles. And Mike Komisarek, who played at Michigan, is a good friend of mine, and I still, you know, we chirp each other just relentlessly. And I think our record at Michigan State, I mean, Cammy left, and you know they lost some guys, but my record at Michigan State for 4 years was pretty good against Michigan. So I always give that to Komisarek. And he's like, yeah, but I was only there for one of those, so it doesn't matter. And like it's that constant just chirping.
Yeah.
But I've seen that highlight. I've had some nightmares about that highlight, but
I just wanted to bring it back up one more time for you.
I got
perfect.
Shaddy and I got caught on one against JVR. His first time we ever played against UNH. He pulled it through his legs on a 1-on-2, goes wide around Shaddy, and I'm just standing there watching it. And then he tucks like that's our moment.
That must be a different JVR that I'm familiar with, because I don't think I've ever seen wide speed from JVR.
Yeah. This is
I'm going to the
18-year-old.
front of the net, and you just get me the puck. It was funny when Boston was here. I was working the game in Denver, and Shaddy and JVR came up to set after the game, and I got to talk to both of those guys, and both of them JVR hitting 1,000 games. I mean, that's awesome. I had such a good time with him in Toronto. He lived in the same building as me. My wife used to cook him food and go put it in his freezer for him, like when we were on road trips, so that he would have stuff to eat when he came back. Like it's so funny thinking about those, like years past, and the connections you have with all these guys. And I texted JVR for his 1,000th game. I said, I can't believe those hips are still moving around.
Couple $100,000 a year he spends on those hips.
Goodness, man, it's unbelievable. He says they're buttery smooth, but I can only imagine the noises coming from those things.
Because he's got someone flying in every city to work on those hips. There is not a player in the NHL that spends more on hip and groin treatments than Reimer does.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, I know we're kind of getting close on time here, but I wasn't sure if I was going to bring this up or not, but you did mention Boston, and I know Charlie McAvoy pretty well.
Yeah.
He's a guy I feel like who doesn't get enough league wide recognition. To me, I think he's one of the best, if not, outside of Cale Makar, best defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah.
But his story, similar to a Cale Makar who steps into the playoffs after a college season, you were on his team.
Yeah.
When he played his first game paired with Zdeno Chara in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what was that like for you and him? Like a young guy coming in, you were a veteran guy. Like that's got to be a pretty good story too, no?
Well, it was an unbelievable story. And thinking back to those playoffs, that was my last year in the league. And we had like 4 defensemen go down in the last month of the season. And they were not all they were all like long-term. Like I think Torrey was like MCL, like 6 weeks. Quater went down with a neck injury. I think Millsy was in and out. Like it was crazy how many injuries we had. So I don't know. Like I know they were kicking around signing Charlie. Now, mind you, I have no idea, right? Like this is all management stuff, but I don't know that they were going to sign him and bring him into the playoffs. But all of a sudden, it was like, well, we kind of got to do this, and he stepped right in, and like he was like I always say, Cale Makar was 3 steps ahead in college, and when he made it to the NHL, he was still a step and a half ahead. And like just reading the game, seeing the game. And Charlie, I would say, was right there. Like he was arguably a step ahead in those playoffs. And it was, hard fought series against Ottawa, and they were a real good team. But he's such a good kid. And I agree with you. Like he's a tremendous player. When you look at him, like he's such a good two-way player, and maybe like the points are where Cale Makar is, or Victor Hedman, and or some of these other guys. And I think that's why maybe he doesn't get the recognition as much as those guys. But he's such a tremendous dominant player. Like when you look at the physicality, the way that he defends, the way that he influences the game, both ends of the rink, I would say he's easily top 3 or 4 defensemen in the NHL, and he's a great kid too. Like Brandon Carlo. Another one of my favorites. Like I love that kid. He's a Colorado kid. And same thing, Colby. I had him. He was paired with me in training camp that first year. And Don Sweeney was like, "Hey, you're going to sit next to him on the plane. You're going to sit next to him on the bus. Sit next to him on the bench. We're going to play every shift. You guys are going to play together. And I just want you to talk to him." And I was like, "All right, sounds good." So I just talked to him.
Number 25. You got a thing for those 25s.
And then first game of the year, they put him with Chara, and I never played another shift.
But let me in 16 that wasn't Claude's last year, right? Bruce Butchie was already was Claude's last year.
So we missed the playoffs the year before. I was a free agent. Boston re-signed me right before the free agency started, and Claude was the coach, and we were just on like this skid in January or February. And I remember we were on the mom's trip. We lost like 5-0 in Pittsburgh, and it was a whole kind of thing, you know, like players only meeting, leadership meeting. And then I think a couple weeks later, Claude got fired. And I liked Claude a lot. Like I got along with him.
So did I, yeah.
And they brought in Butchie. And dude, we went on a run though, because we were out of the playoffs, and we went on a run to get in the playoffs that year. And I forget the numbers, but that was Claude's last year. So it was like maybe a month before, I think a month or a month and a half before the playoffs started is when Butchie came in and took us on this run, and we ended up getting into the playoffs, which for me, like I re-signed in Boston. I had a couple other spots that I was looking, and I re-signed in Boston. One, because I loved being on the Bruins. I love that group. My family and I love the city. The organization treated us, you know, unbelievably. And we re-signed, but I was like, I want another shot at the playoffs. We missed the playoffs. We lost the last game of the year against Ottawa the year before. Tukes got sick the day of the game, and not that
who played Khudobin?
Monster, Jonas Gustafsson.
Oh,
he played,
okay.
and he didn't play badly, but it was like one of those things where we were coming in, we win the game, we're in the playoffs, and we missed the playoffs by a point. And I was like, I just felt like I had unfinished business and re-signed in Boston, and we went on that run to make the playoffs, which for me was, like I wanted another shot at it.
Yeah, well, it was. I loved watching you play in Boston. That was great to see for me. That was fun and following your whole career. But thanks for doing this. I know it's early out in Colorado. There was a lot of questions in the chat. Sorry we didn't get to them all.
I got one more thing though, Colby, if I can.
All right, keep him here for 3 hours.
Johnny.
Why don't you?
I've heard Johnny talk about these like men's leagues games out like in your area. I'm going to Jackson Hole on Thursday to play in 2 games this weekend, and I have no idea what the fuck to expect. So,
are you playing against the Moose?
I think so.
Yeah. So, there's a local team here in Vail. They're called the Vail Yeti. They play against the Moose, but it's a lot of like, there's kid that played at Culver after me, Don Panetta. He played at Ferris State. They got, a lot of, D3 guys.
It's like legit hockey, guys. Right?
Well, yeah, it's legit hockey. They keep trying to get me to suit up, and I'm like, dude, there's hitting. That's never, like no chance.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
Yeah, Colby, it's like
legit.
Yeah, there's like a morning skate.
That's
no,
Johnny only does the alumni events. He's only
no shoulder pads.
If I
gotta get shoulder pads out, that's all I'm out. No shoulder pads. Yeah, it's good hockey. It's good hockey, and it's physical. Jackson is like the whole town supports him. It's super cool, and that's kind of how it is in Vail too. Is the whole town on Friday and Saturday nights goes and watches these games, and it's a really cool kind of atmosphere. It's great for everybody in town. That's like the local workers that on a Friday and Saturday night, it's like that, or you go belly up, right? And so go to the hockey game. It's the cheapest beer in town, and people have a blast.
Yeah, I'm excited. I just the more I heard about it, I was like, oh my God, like I'm not in shape like at all. Like,
the atmosphere is fun. You'll love it. Well, the altitude kills people too, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the tough part is the altitude.
You don't back check anyway, Laz, so you'll be fine.
Won't be able to breathe.
All right, Jonny Liles, we appreciate it. I'm sure you got to get the kids to school now. You're full-time dad. You got to sell some real estate in Vail,
something like that.
If anybody that watches our show needs to buy a piece of real estate in Vail, reach out to me. I'll connect you with this guy right here, because nobody sells more real estate in Vail than Jonny Liles. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
That was awesome. What a cool guy.
It's just honestly, it's great to talk to former players, because guys are just so much more laid back when they're done. But he was like that as a player. Like, he was always having fun. He was always smiling. Like, similarly to Brandon Carlo, like in training camp, like every shift we played together, every drill we did together, every preseason, playing, all that stuff, and it was honestly like I almost got this like crush on him as like a 21-year-old. And then, like, no joke, like after that, obviously he continued to be a high-end player in the NHL for a long time. And I always followed him, and anytime his name was on the score sheet, like I would be happy. When he signed with the Bruins, it was like I was so pumped to get to watch him play there. I just knew how much, how that organization would take care of him and his family. He's got 2 adorable young daughters. His wife went to high school with my cousins out in Colorado.
Oh,
so
really?
there's all this like family connection,
Yeah.
back in the day. So definitely.
Well, no, I was gonna say something I wanted to ask him that came up that I want to ask you as well. You've probably been in more of them than me, but I feel like a lot of fans are always curious about what goes on in player-only meetings, right? Like, when shit kind of hits the fan, if these are like legit conversations. I've been a part of like 2, but have you ever been in like a legit players-only meeting in the NHL or in pro?
I remember sitting in one actually in the Stanley Cup final, or excuse me, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. There was one players only meeting after the 11 Bruins went down 0-2. It wasn't like a players only meeting where like it was a big deal, but it was just like a very serious conversation amongst the guys. And then I think there was maybe a similar conversation after going down 0-2 in the final round against Vancouver. And not so much this players meeting where everybody talks and it was more just like let's get together. Let's like, we're still okay. Like we have good enough players to do this. Like, so I don't know. Like, I think some players only meetings can be bullshit and they're just for media,
like media, right?
Fans to talk about. But I think that in a situation where like you have Chara and Bergeron and all this veteran leadership in your locker room. I mean, like, Andrew Ferentz, Dennis Seidenberg, David Krejci, although those guys were still pretty young at the time. But, when you have those types of players that have things to say, like especially Chara, like you shut up and listen. You know what I mean? Tim Thomas, he was a veteran on that team as well. So yeah, it's good to get his perspective and hear about those things. Like I think that like I said, he played like 850 games in the league. He had some injury troubles, or he probably would have been a 1,000-game guy, but he was a super productive player. Like he always played his prime. He played in Colorado. If he would have spent his prime in New York or Boston or Toronto or a bigger market, I think more people would have probably realized just how good he was. He only played 5 games in the American League and then went to the NHL and never went back. So he definitely did it the right way. So let's get to our tweet of the night, Johnny.
Well, okay. So I don't know what it's going to be. I submitted one, you submitted one, so I'm curious to see what our producer Vic went with. But here's our Tim Hortons tweet of the night. Roll Up to Win is back for Tim's 60th anniversary. Celebrate our big year with some big prizes as an all-electric Volkswagen ID4, a sun-soaked Hilton getaway, and cash with a daily jackpot of $10,000. Play today on the Tim's app. So let's see our tweet of the night last night.
It's our boy. This is our terrible tweet of the night. So
this is the one you submitted.
Jonny Laz puts on Twitter the Vinny Trocheck open net goal, trying to stir up drama, throws the eye emojis with the tweet, and he writes, Trocheck shot that kind of hard, ? What do you think is going to happen when you put something on Twitter like that, Johnny? Well, you're going to get a negative response, and you did. You then had to follow it up with a tweet that said, the fact that people who don't realize I'm joking is everything wrong with this app. Johnny, you're part of everything that's wrong with that.
Do you not agree with that, though? Like, you see that, and you obviously know it's a joke.
I obviously saw that and went, God, he's such an idiot.
Really?
That's what because I know what you're doing. You're trying to stir up drama. Where's Pizza Sports Guy today? We need Pizza Sports Guy to get in here and rip on you for being Johnny Drama. He does that on Twitter like every single day. I haven't seen him once in the chat today. So
he's probably sleeping because he was up watching the Islanders get smacked last night by LA.
Yeah, that was a rough game. But look, thank you to Tim Hortons. We love our tweet of the night. Just to give you all a little bit of insight, we start sending those in probably around like 8 p.m. and like every like 20 minutes, one of us writes into the chat, myself, Johnny, or our producer Vic, wait, no, this one's better. Wait, no, this one's better. Like it's kind of something that we have a lot of fun with every night. So if you have something good, you can always, quote tweet and send something to Johnny or I on Twitter, and we'll get, your tweet of the night or help us pick.
Yeah, even like DM.
tweet of the night. Yeah, hit Johnny in the DMs. He loves the DMs. I'm
I
not as
respond
good
to
in the
everyone
DMs.
pretty much. Yeah,
I'm not as good in the DMs. I don't really look at them. So that's that. So let's get to tonight, Johnny. We got 10 NHL games. Last night was a little bit dry. I mean, Winnipeg looked good. The Islanders had a rough game. I didn't see that. I went to bed. But looking at the slate tonight, I think there's a couple of matchups that sort of catch my eye, Johnny. And the first one is a big boy matchup in the East. I mean, potential Eastern Conference Finals preview of the New York Rangers against the Carolina Hurricanes. It's a shame that the Rangers are on the end of a back-to-back. They did play very well last night, and it wasn't a crazy physical or emotional game because I think they were pretty much in control of that game throughout. So hopefully they still have some legs.
Once Rempe got tossed, it kind of just, the emotion died down a little bit. The emotion was all built up because of him. But yeah, the Rangers were in control the whole night. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to add that little piece.
No, it's okay. No, listen, I'm looking forward to seeing that game. I am. Obviously, Jake Gensel's still not in the lineup. The question I have is will Rempe get suspended? And before I ask you your opinion on this, I will just say, look, I thought 5 in a game was the right call. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him 1 game because it was a direct elbow to the head. I don't foresee this being 10 games, 15. Like I was kidding with Nick Alberga on social media last night from Leafs Take about how many games that he could get. But, I think maybe 1 game I could see happening, but we'll see. I mean, that type of news usually comes out around 11 or 12. So we'll find out in the next hour. What about you? What do you think?
I'm surprised you think it's just 1. To me, I'm going to say it's 3 just because this is a young kid. He's been making a name for himself in the media a little bit. He's been getting called dirty.
But he hasn't played dirty, though. He hasn't really played dirty. He's playing physical. I don't think he's playing dirty. I didn't have an issue with the Labushkin hit.
Yeah, I just think they have to the Bastion hit. I still think that could have been 1 game. And I think
not 1. I don't think that should have been a suspension, but I thought it should have been a penalty.
And I think if you keep letting him slide a bit, it just sends the wrong message.
So you think they're going to try to rein him in and they're going to try to give him 3 games is what you think?
I think so. I mean, if
I'd be surprised if it was 3 games based on the fact that he has no history.
Well, what did they give McAvoy? They gave McAvoy 4 for an elbow earlier this year. They gave Gallagher 5. And McAvoy is not a repeat offender by any means. And he's a veteran, but
I think he's had a suspension or 2 before, though. Has he not? Because he plays physical, Charlie. But I don't know.
I can't think of 1 though.
Okay, all right.
So to me, I think
people
it's
in the chat. D. Ely says $5,000 fine. Carousel Vertigo says he'll get 2 to 3 games. Johnny, the Bastion hit was clean.
Yeah, this guy Recon Gamer has been coming at me all morning,
all day, calling you a Devils fan, which is
all morning.
It's just funny how team fans you can't have an opinion that doesn't match theirs without being called. You're not a fan of the team. You're not this. I mean, the people that saw the video yesterday where I said Rempe has absolutely given spark to this team, and Peter Laviolette completely agreed with that. And nowhere in there did Laviolette say that he changed the identity of the team. That's what I said on social media yesterday. And I had all these Ranger fans tweeting at me, you don't really know what you're talking about when it comes to hockey, or you don't understand what team identity means. You think it's about their record. Oh, thank you for educating me about hockey. I've forgotten more about hockey than anybody tweeting at me about me not knowing about the game of hockey. So it's hilarious to see how, again, I like the Rangers. Honestly, I like watching the Rangers. I like the organization. I like New York. I like their I like their players. I love watching Adam Fox. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the NHL. But God forbid I don't agree with someone, in their mom's basement. Well, then I don't know anything about hockey. So let's keep moving on. Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah. No, I actually was going to just move on to the next one. I don't really give a shit, honestly. People know I'm a Ranger fan, and sometimes
you just don't want to. You don't want to be combative, so I get.
No, I could. I'm a Rangers fan, but I could look at a play and not have a Ranger bias to it.
Right. Okay.
So if I'm going to get shit on for that, that's fine. But the game I'm actually really curious.
I know which one you're going to.
Which one?
Florida, Dallas. That's
no.
Which game? What
No,
game?
I'm actually looking at Buffalo, Detroit, because Detroit right now, they've lost 5 in a row. They're, holding on to that second wild card spot, but they're skidding. And Buffalo is only 7 points back. Like, Buffalo wins this game, they're within 5 points of a playoff spot. Like, I feel like no one's talking about them because they haven't been consistent all year. But like, this is a sneaky big game. No?
Jeremiah says, I married a Rangers fan. Always fun. It's good to have Jeremiah back in the chat today, by the way. Yeah, look, you like to live on hopes and wishes. The Buffalo Sabres are not making the playoffs this year. Like you're playing with house money. When you're playing with house money, when nobody cares what you do, the trade deadline's passed.
You don't think they win this game? They're in the conversation?
I have no idea. There's no way the Buffalo Sabres are making the playoffs. It's not happening, okay? Like, they've yet to be consistent one time this year. Now, all of a sudden, you think they're going to be consistent because they're playing with house money.
6-3-1 their last 10.
Look, Detroit didn't make a move at the deadline. Here's why that doesn't shock me, okay? Because I think Stevie Y knows what he has. He doesn't have a Stanley Cup contender right now, even with Patty Kane. I think the priority in the offseason is get Kane re-signed to a reasonable contract and then maybe add a piece or two and start to push next year. Okay. So, I'm not surprised. Our producer Vic was surprised that Stevie Y didn't make a move in the at the deadline. It didn't surprise me, Johnny. I don't know. Do you agree?
I mean, I think it's easy to say it wasn't their year, so I respect not going for it, right? If that makes sense. But like, what they've built, I think even going into this year, Detroit was like, I think our goal is to make the playoffs. I think next year,
and they're right there.
Yeah,
right
next
there.
year maybe win a round, get to the second round. Like, they've been slowly building there. Right, I don't think they want to rush it. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, why overpay at the deadline for marginal pieces when you can do it in the offseason with a more holistic and high level approach to who you have? Is Kane going to re-sign? Do you need to replace those points, etc.? So it didn't surprise me at all. So, a couple other games, Colorado, Calgary. Colorado's on a 3-game winning streak. They're starting to get these new pieces into the lineup. Vegas and Seattle. Vegas is 3-6-1 in their last 10. Like, it's getting to that point where, like, they need to start playing well. You can't limp into the playoffs, 10 games, losing 10 of your last, 15 games. It's not healthy for any team, even the defending Cup champions, even with a stacked blue line and good goaltending. So, what about the San Jose Philly game? That's the beginning of Torts' suspension. Okay, and that will take us.
Was it connecting yesterday? The it's a next coach up mentality. Did you see that quote? That was fucking hilarious.
Cam Atkinson.
That was so good.
Which is funny awesome because of all the history between him and Torts. But look, before we go any further on this San Jose Philly game, we got to talk about our Betway bet of the day. And you must be 19 years of age or older, as always, Ontario only. And I say it every day, and I'll say it again today. Please bet responsibly, especially if you're taking advice from our quote-unquote betting expert and producer, Vic, who has not done a very good job for our listeners giving bets. So we're getting to the point with our Betway bet of the day where maybe you need to start fading our guy, Vic. And Vic, what about this San Jose Philadelphia game in Philadelphia tonight do you like?
All right. Well, I'm going to start off by saying if I miss this one, I will shave my beard for our show tomorrow.
All right, so everyone, you got that. I don't want to see that. He's going to shave his beard if he misses tonight.
I'm showing you that I got a stake in this as well. All right, I'm taking the Flyers on the puck line, -1.5 to get the juice down there. It's game one without Torts. Colby, you've said it all year. When a team shows you who they are, believe them. And Flyers have shown us they're a playoff team, and the San Jose Sharks have shown us that they stink. They just got embarrassed 7-0. I think the Flyers will come out with some juice, and I'm going to go football narrative a little bit here. West Coast team traveling east, daylight savings time, San Jose going to Philly. It's like what time would that be? A 3 p.m. game for San Jose. So I think they'll come out a little sleepy. I'm taking Philadelphia on the puck line.
All right, you got it. Philly on the puck line. Thanks to our man Vic, and thanks to Betway for their bet of the day. Must be 19 years of age or older, Ontario only, and please always play responsibly, especially when you take advice, whether it's from Vic or from Johnny. Play responsibly and just be a little cautious. Now, Johnny, let's get to a couple things in the chat.
Yeah.
J.E. said, do you think we are not giving enough respect to Brunette and the Preds, and he thinks he should be the Jack Adams favorite along with Rick Tocchet? What do you think, Johnny?
Jack Adams favorite. I mean, I think he should maybe be in the conversation. First year as a head coach, you know, he does a great job with them.
Well, he was interim head in for almost an entire season in Florida.
No, I'm saying with this team though.
I know, but you said first year head coach. He does have head coaching experience.
I meant with Nashville.
Okay, fair.
But I mean, I guess, you know, that was also by default though, if you think about it. So it is kind of his first year as a head coach that he was like,
doesn't matter, but I'm just saying he has head coaching experience in the NHL.
Yes. But also, like, people think Nashville was like so bad last year, which they were. They had a lot of injuries, but they were still like only 5 points out of the playoffs. Like, they didn't miss by much.
Agreed.
So I don't think he like really turned them around so drastically like Tocchet has done in Vancouver. Like, the Canucks have not knocked on the door for the playoffs in quite some time, and he's had them basically in the run for the President's Trophy since the first game of the season. So to me, it's Tock still. You know, I'm trying to think of someone outside the box.
Well, Torts.
I was gonna think maybe Torts is outside the box, but
no, that's not outside the box. I'm
think
sorry.
So?
No, that is far from outside the box. I mean, this team was.
But just that they get in the playoffs, you're saying?
People thought that the Flyers would be picking for Macklin Celebrini this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let me give you my opinion on that. I actually agree with you to an extent, J.E. I don't think we are giving the Preds enough love. And yesterday on DFO Live, John Goyens did a breakdown of the transition and the way Nashville defends the slot and the house, and then the way they use it to their transition. And it's right up Andrew Burnett's alley. They're fast on their transition. They play north-south. They're deactivate. They're able to generate on the rush. They're smart about the way they play pucks in behind. I think that Brunette is not getting enough love, from me included. I think the Preds are right there, obviously, you know, in that playoff spot. I don't think they're winning a playoff round, but I do think Brunette should get more credit because look, they've sold some pieces off. You know, they're in a transition with Barry Trotz, so I think that they do not get you know, enough credit. Now,
well, this is an interesting comment in the chat too from Johan Nordin. Expectation before versus reality. It's not a debate. Flyers is the story this year, but I still think the expectation versus reality with Vancouver is still very drastic.
I mean, but Vancouver has a bunch of star players on their roster and a star goaltender.
But people still pick them to miss the playoffs.
But okay, fine. But I'm just saying, like, look at the roster Rick Tocchet has to work with versus the roster that John Tortorella has to work with. You can't compare those rosters. If anything, Vancouver had been severely underperforming. Underperforming. Like, I'm sorry. I don't agree with you, Johnny. I really don't on this one. I think Rick Tocchet is one of the should be in that group for Coach of the Year, but John Tortorella is every bit right there with him. Every single bit right there with him. You know, you've got Tocchet, who's been given the opportunity. Let's go all in. Let's trade for Lindholm. Let's do this. You've got John Tortorella, where they're trading away pieces. He's developing first-year NHL players. He loses their starting goaltender. I mean, come on. Like, you can't say John Tortorella is outside the box. Like, that's
no.
That's
yeah. You've changed my mind on that for sure.
Okay,
but also now, see, here's kind of like that Vancouver argument. What about Knobloch? I mean, they were in rock bottom when he came in.
They have Connor McDavid, Johnny.
I know, but still, like
they started to they were just as bad the first month of the season last year. They had the same horrifying start to the season last year. Yeah, they were bad last year in the beginning too.
I don't remember them being bad.
No, Knobloch does not get to be a part of that discussion. Okay. Hell no. Okay. No way. And that doesn't mean he's not a good coach, but he is not in that same group that we're talking about. So I think that's all we're going to have time for today. Vic's asking us, what about Rick Bowness? We love Rick Bowness. Yeah. Winnipeg's got a really good roster. I wouldn't, excuse me, put him at that. Like, I expect this out of Winnipeg. They've got the maybe best goalie at times in the NHL. They've got a really deep roster. They've made some really good trades. I mean, I love Rick Bowness. I really do. He's one of the nicest guys that you will meet when you're broadcasting and you're talking to coaches. But I just don't think he's quite where Torts is, what Torts has done, or maybe what Rick Tocchet has done. I don't think it's quite.
Yeah. But if you're picking right now, you're picking Torts as your Jack Adams winner?
John Tortorella. And I will say this, and I said this to Danny Briere on Sunday afternoon at his son's birthday party. I said, Danny, and I know you didn't make this hire, but when Chuck Fletcher hired John Tortorella, to me, it reeked of desperation. It reeked of desperation. It was like the Hail Mary to save and fix your job, okay? I have done a 180-degree turn on that opinion. I couldn't have been more wrong about what John Tortorella could do with young players, how he could inspire a team, a city, a franchise. I couldn't have been more wrong, and I'm sticking to that 100%. So that is one of those where I'm happy to be proven wrong or have a change of heart or change of opinion.
Yeah, honestly, you've changed my opinion as well. I'm leaning towards now a little bit more, but they obviously got to make the playoffs. If they don't, then it's not a conversation.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. They need to win tonight. The Islanders lost last night. They've got a gauntlet of a schedule coming up. We're going to find out if the Islanders are a playoff team over their next 8 games. I mean, we will, because they've got a gauntlet of a schedule that I actually still have right in front of me. New York Rangers, Carolina, Detroit, Winnipeg, Jersey, Florida, Tampa, Philly for the Islanders. Like, if they can get through that, taking maybe 5 of those 8 games, they're a playoff team.
But again, their next 2 are in Buffalo, home versus Ottawa.
Right. But I'm just talking about that skid of 8 games after their next couple games. We will know if they're a playoff team or not. Okay. And not to mention, you just threw Buffalo in as an easy game after you called them a playoff team 14 minutes ago.
I didn't call them a playoff team. I said they'll be in the mix, which they will be. And that'll be a fucking big game too for Buffalo if they win tonight. Because then they're like 3 points back. So
Jules is saying Oilers start was far worse this year. Yeah, it was. But they've had bad starts in the past where they've gone on massive, runs and stretches. So
I know we want to wrap it up, but Hunter has a good question too for both of us. Is there a coach/executive who has reversed their reputation as much as Torts?
Well, I mean, look, I think Torts, like, when you really dig in and talk to players, and Cam Atkinson's a good friend of mine. You know, we grew up playing hockey together, on summer teams our whole life, BU, BC. We'd see each other all the time. And I have a lot of faith and trust in what Cam tells me. Cam went through really hard times with Torts as a young player, but said that it actually made him the player that he is, and really appreciates what Torts did for him. So I think a lot of the way the media and the fans look at Torts is different than I think management and coaches and players look at Torts. He's not necessarily for everybody. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head, Hunter. I don't want to give you I don't want to answer it without really thinking about it. So maybe that's something we can talk about tomorrow. The question, again, I'll repeat it from Hunter in the chat. Is there a coach or executive who has reversed their reputation as much as Torts? So I want to think about that before I give you an answer. Maybe Torts is the answer. Off the top of my head, like, I just can't, I can't think of someone. And like I said, I want to put a little bit of thought into that into that question. And you know what? We want to hear your opinions on that too in the chat. So maybe tomorrow we'll revisit this question and we'll get everyone else's opinion on the chat.
Wait, also, did anyone see last night O'Shea Jackson Jr., Ice Cube's son, just randomly tweeted, like, fuck Mike Babcock, he's a menace to society? Did you see that?
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
That was...
I do not like Mike Babcock. John-Michael Liles was here for the first 45 minutes of the show. Buck, he started the show with us, and we said bye to him around 9:45. So if you want to hear what he said, definitely make sure you download it on podcasts or Spotify.
Yeah. And also just back to the Tortorella thing, Michael Delzato, also a big fan of John Tortorella, always raves about how awesome of a coach he was.
Johan is telling me to tell Cam to start scoring again. I wish it were that easy. I know Cam puts a lot of pressure on himself to produce. I know Torts puts a lot of pressure on him. Is easy to take him out of the lineup. So I just think at the end of the day, Cam's 34, 35 years old. Like, you get on the back nine and it gets a little bit harder to score. So hopefully he'll start producing again and the Flyers will stick around this playoff spot, Johnny.
Yeah. But great show today. A lot of fun. Thanks for getting John-Michael Liles. He was awesome. Thank you to the chat. Sorry we couldn't get to a lot of your questions till, just the last 10 minutes, but another fun show tomorrow. Working on a guest right now. Hoping to lock that in. Won't say who yet, but hopefully a current player.
Is it who we talked about yesterday?
Yeah. He just texted me back. So we'll see. Should I just say or no?
You can tell him who you're working on. Go ahead.
Yeah. So a good friend of mine, Mario Ferraro, assistant captain for the San Jose Sharks. Obviously they've had a rough year. Just traded away Tomas Hertl. They play tonight in Philly. Would be cool just to, Vic just bet against him. Would be cool to just kind of hear about what it's like going through that. It's never easy to go to the rink and lose a lot of hockey games. It's got to be tough. But Mario is one of my favorite people ever. Seriously, if you don't know anything about Mario Ferraro, I highly recommend looking up his interviews and stuff. This is one of the happiest guys I've ever met. So hopefully we get him on tomorrow. Again, no promises because they play tonight, so we'll see.
Todd Weinberg, get Torts on. I don't think he's doing much this week. I don't think we have that kind of pull. I think we'll get Danny Briere on at some point in the next couple of weeks. But Vic is texting me to take Mario out for drinks and get him all banged up today for
the game tonight. Yeah, that's funny. Recon Gamer at 420 wants to come on as a guest. Can we make a bet? And if the bet loses, that he can come on for 2 minutes and yell at me?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right.
I like the David Quinn love from Jeremiah though in the chat. David Quinn's one of my favorite coaches I ever had. I played for him at many different levels. He's someone that I lean on for stuff all the time, whether it's hockey, life, whatever. He's always someone that I can reach out to. He's an awesome guy. So I hate to see him struggling as much as he is in San Jose. So I like the love from Jeremiah to Quinny. That's just one more gold star for our guy Jeremiah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we wrap it up today. Yesterday we went a little long and I was late. I missed the entire morning skate, and then I came home and got a parking ticket. So pretty rough day yesterday for me. Tough Monday.
After you got stood up on the date, you've had a rough 4 or 5 days. We'll talk about that.
And then my ex-girlfriend posted a new guy.
Hold on. Save it for tomorrow, Johnny. Save it for tomorrow.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Have a great day. Thank you, Vic. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.